Namaste and welcome everyone. It is me, Nina Saacks from Yoga Awakening Africa, and I am excited and delighted that I get to chat with Reena Singh today. Reena, you are one of our trainees on the teacher training with the Academy of Yoga and Ayurveda. There we go, got it out, managed to get it right. Good couple many years back, actually. And I thought,
2016.
when was it?
2016.
2016, so nearly 10 years ago, just under 10 years. So that has been a while. So I am really excited that we get to chat and to hear about kind of like your journey. So let's just get straight into it and be like, okay, why did you decide to do a yoga teacher training way back then?
So, and I remember my interview at that point. So I'm going to give you the same answer then as I did. um, I'd reached a stage in my life because I'd done martial arts throughout my teens into my early 20s. And my instructor at that point had taken me to a yoga class or two while I was doing martial arts. I was like, no, not quite for me just yet. And he couldn't understand it, and I couldn't understand him. Um, and then I got into yoga after um, engaging with an Ayurvedic doctor, and he had said that my mind works too fast. It's constantly in motion. I'm not relaxing. I'm not focusing. I'm just moving. And it would be very good for me to start a yoga practice where I can be more centered, more grounded, and more focused. And so I listened and I started yoga, and I thought it was amazing. I had started with Iyengar yoga, but coming from an Indian background, I obviously understood a lot of Hindi. The reading of Hindi is very similar to Sanskrit. I had obviously a passion for things that were more traditional. And when I wanted to do the yoga instructor course, my instructor at that point had said she thinks I'm better suited for Hatha yoga than Iyengar yoga. So I contacted you guys and we had the interview. At that point, I hadn't been for a Hatha yoga session. I'd been for every other yoga session under the sun, from Bikram to Vinyasa to Iyengar to, I'm trying to think what else, Tantric yoga, everything, but not a Hatha yoga session. And meeting you and the team, I learned about it and I did a few classes and I was like, okay, let's give this a go. And it was lovely. It was actually a very challenging year for me because I had a lot going on personally, but it was something that I would recommend to anybody to do it, whether you want to teach or for yourself.
Mm, mm. And I love how you kind of like were saying that you'd experienced lots of, different types of styles. It's so interesting that you hadn't had a chance or the inclination to like do a hatha yoga class. I don't know if it's just because there weren't any around with where you were.
It weren't around. That was it. Because if there was a yoga style around that was accessible to me, I tried it.
Mm.
It was just that hatha yoga wasn't close to me. There wasn't any classes close to me, and that's the reason I hadn't tried it.
Yeah. And so after the teacher training, you actually then started teaching a little bit for a while because your background is IT. So you're like full-time working and then you did like yoga a little bit on the side. So let's hear about like kind of like what happened with like yoga on the side and also like how yoga impacted you in your work and how did you shift anything with that? Yeah, I'll let you.
So when I finished the yoga training course, I thought, well, you have to now put it to practice. So I started to teach two classes on a Saturday, and they were about an hour apart. The first one was to a CrossFit class in the area, and I would go in and do their yoga session, and they would have a 15-minute break and then start their CrossFit class. That was lots of fun. They were these A-type, very controlling, need to meet a goal kind of people, and that resonated with me because in my work life I'm the same. Um,
So
my
you can
realization,
really relate as to like where they were at, what they, wanted, what they were craving, what they loved. And actually, like your Ayurvedic practitioner or doctor was saying, like you actually need something to slow down. So could you
yes,
see that with them as well?
absolutely. And I find that one of my learnings, one of my takeaways from teaching yoga was that your personality actually should dictate the type of yoga you do. So if you are that fast paced, very goal oriented, very let's work under pressure, let's get things done person, then hatha yoga is actually perfect for you because it forces you to breathe, and it forces you to meditate, and it forces you to slow down and focus on rather getting your positions right and getting your asanas right rather than going into a position incorrectly. So it's taking a step back and doing a reflection of what am I doing that's wrong. I don't need to get to that point. I don't need to get to point A as fast as I can. I need to get to point A as mindfully as I can, as slowly and as consciously as I can. And that I thought they needed desperately because I needed it desperately. And I learned that and how it actually helped them before they went into their CrossFit class where they were pulling dumbbells and doing all of this fun stuff. At the same time, I was teaching an older group of people in my complex. There's a lovely garden. We would do yoga in the garden. Very, very different. Very, very different group of people to the CrossFitters. Very relaxed, very slow, very happy to just, come to yoga, do a few stretches and go away. And those are the people that needed to get a little bit of a push, as in drive themselves just a little bit more. So it was like, okay, you hold the pose a little bit longer, you you take that little step extra to get to a point. And yeah, I think my biggest realization there was, and such an important one, that not every type of yoga is going to match every personality.
Yeah, yeah, so true. And that was one of the big things that I think I learned as well on my Ayurvedic course, which is again, in a sense, one of the fundamental principles of Ayurveda is this idea that opposites balance. So, like you were saying, like you're really hectic, your mind is going, you're very driven. And so, what you need to balance that is often the slow and steady and more mindful, reflective space where you can take a step back and be like, am I actually going in the right direction? Because for those who've got a lot of pitta and a lot of energy, they can just go, go, go. And if they're not angled in the right direction, what the hell are we doing that? And then you've got some of those people, like you're saying, who just come on the Saturday morning and like their children relax and they're just like floating through life and they don't actually have a specific goal or a little bit drive and they need a little bit more of that heat, of that momentum to kind of like get them going and to get them
Yeah.
excited about life again and to bring a little bit more balance into the way we are. It's not about like changing who we are per se, like our personality, because we are unique and we've got our benefit, but it's making sure that we don't blow ourselves out of proportion with or
It's
stagnate
right.
completely.
It's finding balance because too much drive, too much relaxation, either way, it's not going to serve as well. It's just finding a little bit of balance in your life,
Yeah.
bringing yourself into some sort of equilibrium, knowing that if you work at that fast pace and you never stop, it's going to damage you. It's going to cause you harm. And by the same token, being in complete relaxation mode throughout your days is never going to get you anywhere. So you find a little bit of balance with the right type of yoga.
Yeah, absolutely. So how have you evolved in life, I would say, like after having yoga in your life? Like how have things evolved and shifted and changed for you?
So I think the two words for me are consciousness and awareness.
Mm.
Those are, and they probably in certain conversations very synonymous with each other, but
I was going to say, okay, so what's the difference between those two,
yeah.
Reena?
I feel like consciousness is a bit more internal, whereas awareness is of other people, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. So consciousness for me is the inner realization of be that person all the time. Being conscious of why I make certain decisions, being conscious of how I treat other people, being conscious of the effect certain things have on me, whether it's the food I eat, whether it's the places I go to, whether it's the friends I hang out with, just being conscious of all the decisions I take and how that impacts me. And I feel like awareness is more external, being aware of how other people react to me, being aware of what other people are going through. And yoga for me gave me both of those things. Yoga is something that I take into my work life, and I think it's boded me very, very well. The way I treat people in my team, the way I interact with them, it's finding the balance between a deadline and remembering that someone is human and their children may be sick, or their mother-in-law may be in hospital, or life happens. And that awareness continuously, I think, has built the relationships for me at work that has been invaluable.
Mm.
um, I've received such good feedback from my team, and they love working with me, and it's because I'm so aware of each person. And the thing is that no two people are alike, so you have to take the time, and you have to make the effort to know every single person, and what they value in their life, to be able to interact with them, and get the best out of them in the work environment and for themselves. So I find that with yoga, just looking inward and being conscious of yourself helps you with people, helps you recognize the humanity in people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love how you're saying that it's reflected back to you by like your work colleagues and those who work for you, that they coming to you and they saying they love working for you. They want to work for you. I mean, that is one of the highest, I don't know, acknowledgements, I think,
Yeah.
with people, is that like when they can see that you've changed and that you're human, and yes, you've got the drive and you've got the dedication, and you're still going to, I don't know if reprimand's the right word, but hold someone accountable if they've done a mistake or action. But there are certain ways that you can do it. You can scream and shout, or you can have a slightly different approach where it's more reflective.
Yes, it's having a conversation as opposed to screaming and shouting, right? It's having that it's having that humanity.
Mm,
Screaming and shouting is not going to get people to work better.
mm,
Screaming and shouting is not going to get people to perform. And screaming and shouting is not going to get people to enjoy the environment and you.
yeah.
So having that awareness of what's on in their life, having the relationship building makes all the difference. Having a conversation about what's going on, and how we can fix it, and supporting them. And it's also balance. I
Mm,
mean, you can't have 20 people on a project firing ahead at 120% continuously for this project is almost 2 years. For 2 years, it doesn't work like that.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's making sure they have the downtime when they need it. It's give and take, it's balance. And that balance, that concept of balance is actually critical.
Mm,
Uh, Something just popped into my head. One of my yoga students, actually, we used to train in the garden. So she was one of the garden students. And we would go into a Viratri, and she would battle in the garden. And she's like, just not right. Why can I do it so well at home? And I'm like, it's because at home the ground is perfectly flat. And she's like, yeah, it's so much easier. Da, 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 da. And I said to her, but life isn't easy. So when you're in your home, you balance. That's perfect. It's a controlled environment. You have access to what you let into your life, what you let into your home, who you let into your home, the experiences you're going to have there. But when you go outside, you have no clue. So in the same way, you're doing it on your perfectly tiled, perfectly wooden floors. Everything is hunky dory. You have no issues. You come out into the park, it's a little bit wobbly. Now you need to focus. Now you need to balance, and that's where it counts. So, same way, you may be this wonderful person at home. When you go into the work environment, when you go into the world, and everything starts getting thrown at you, can you maintain that personality? Can you maintain those traits that you have under the stress, under the pressure? And yeah, there's your balance.
I absolutely love that analogy because it's so true. It's like when we're in our home, we can control a whole environment. And I love what you were saying, like you allow you acknowledge as to who you allow into your space, or not. It is your home and everything can kind of like be under control. And that's why I also find like when I'm working with my Ayurvedic habits, it's so like I've got my routine sorted, my fridge is, stocked up in the pantry, stocked up the way I want, and blah, blah, blah. But as soon as I go traveling, and I'm high in Vata and I love traveling, so it happens a lot, then everything is like you were talking about that lady outside in the park. It is all uneven, things go, and then you wonder, like, why do you slip out of balance? And this last time when I was in Iceland, I was like, okay, interesting. What are the few basic principles that I can do to find that equilibrium while I'm out of my, normal routine and space. And that's where the yoga comes in. It is taking it off the mat, out of your house and into the world. And it sounds like this is exactly what you're doing, and how you're practicing. So
But that's where the consciousness comes in, because it's not something that you're ever going to perfect. You have to keep at it, right? You have to keep being conscious of why you're reacting the way you're reacting. You have to keep working at being better at it. It's not a, oh, I'm there. It's a constant inner consciousness that you need to carry with you wherever you go. And that's the work. That's
I love
the
it.
effort that you.
It's like a sense like every time you do something, it kind of like builds a little bit more resilience. So if I just like
Yes.
love this example of this woman, like, if she goes and does her Virabhadrasana 3 in the park now, and she manages to focus and do it, and yes, one day it's going to be working and the next day it's not, that's how it is. But the more she does it, the more she's probably going to get better at it. So she's building that resilience. And if you think about it, like at some point, she's going to be able to do that outdoors, like she's being able to do it inside. And then she's going to go elsewhere. She's going to go to the beach, and then she's going to be flopping around even more, or it's going to be in the wind or whatnot. But she's going to navigate and stabilize that. And then her resilience is going to build and build and build. And so that's exactly what it sounds like to me. It's like how you're like what you were explaining about. It's like that's one way. Interact with your environment and the world out there. Don't be scared of the world. Actually interact with it because it's giving you an opportunity to learn and grow.
That's exactly it. It'll never be perfect, but it'll get easier, like you said, right?
Mm. And I also find like the universe is inherently like on our side. Like it's not here to like, you know, force us or, like be our enemy. It's there to teach us something. So like embracing that instead of forcing, I find that that's often a really helpful concept as well to get.
Absolutely. But it starts with with being open to it, right?
Yeah. Like you say, consciousness and awareness, like I love those two words. They're so cool. So my thinking, and I think this is probably something I've thought like since I met you on the teacher training, is like she's got like a smart brain behind her. She's a smart
Oh,
brain. Like,
I was waiting. I was like, oh, what are you going to
you know where this is going. It's like she should be having like, a franchise of, the right kind of yoga studios all around. But you don't have a studio and you're not teaching now. So what is the thought? What is the plan? Do you mind sharing that with everyone? Because I think it's really helpful for someone who might be in a similar position to you, who's really focused and driven with their job and their work, has maybe done a teacher training or thinking of doing a teacher training, but like not wanting to give up what you're able to reap the rewards from working versus kind of like starting a new hobby or passion?
So firstly, the yoga teacher course, whether you plan to train or whether you're doing it for yourself, it's still valuable. I try to do yoga at least 5 times a week, and even if it's 20 to 30 minutes each time, I still get to it. Whether it's doing Surya Namaskars in the morning and Chandra Namaskars in the evening, I get to it because it is invaluable. If you are working full time, you can't get to a class, you're busy, there's no excuse. I also keep a yoga mat in the lounge, in the garage, in the yoga room, and in the bedroom because I never want to give myself an excuse that, oh, I don't feel like going into, oh, I don't want to go outside. Oh, if I feel like, you know what, I want to roll off the couch onto a yoga mat and do some yoga in my lounge, I do it, kind of thing. And I think the knowledge you gain from the yoga teaching, the teaching course it's incredible. You can do it. You can do yoga anyway. You don't have to go get to a class. I love classes. I don't have the time for them, but it doesn't matter. I can use everything I've learned to keep myself healthy and grounded and flexible and conscious. So that's the first part. The second thing is I did stop teaching when COVID hit and I didn't start again. But the plan is always to teach yoga long term. The way I want to teach, however, doesn't align itself to a business model. And so for that, I will need to procure my own studio and I want to do something that's a lot more traditional. I don't want people to feel like they can't enjoy yoga. It needs to, or there's stress around it, and I don't want to have any financial, what's the word, dependence on teaching yoga. So in the next 5 years, I want to have my own studio, but I'm doing the time now with the 8 to 5s. Not really 8 to 5. It is flexible, but let's call it an 8 to 5. Um, with the 8 to 5s, so that I can be in a position where I can do what I want with the passion that I have, without having the stress and the strain of having to cover rental, without having, to follow up on people paying for classes and. Absolutely, there's value and they must, but I don't want to teach yoga for the monetary benefit. I teach for the love of yoga, for the value it adds. And the only way that I can do that is to put myself into a position where I'm not dependent on rent or on the income from yoga. So that's the 5-year plan.
Love it, love it. And I think it's really helpful for everyone to hear like it's whatever one's plan is or idea of how to teach, it can be different. We don't all have to have the same plan or idea. But it's so nice to hear that what you're putting forth is an option and that it's one that is true to you. And so you know what the long-term plan is. So you can work towards that mindfully, with awareness, with a sense of consciousness again. And it's not just kind of like, I've done this, so I can do this. So because we can do everything, or there's lots that we can do. We can do anything, but we can't do everything. And we've got to pick and choose and set our priorities. And so, like you're saying, I know what the end goal is. I know what the plan is. I was playing with food coloring. I was trying to die.
I was wondering where the green came from.
Oh, that looks terrible. Yes, knowing what that end goal is really, really helpful. And then moving towards that mindfully. But I think a lot of people don't actually know what their end goal is. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle.
And that's okay too. That's okay too. I mean, that's life, right? That's why we're here. We're here to figure it out. So if you don't know today, maybe some meditation, maybe some focus, maybe some what's the word, inner work will help you to get there, to decide how you want to get there, or if you want to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, even if you want to teach, if you want to share it, it's a blessing to be able to do it. It's
Mm.
it's such value that you can add to the world by teaching yoga, by teaching people how to be more aware, how to be more conscious. But at the same time, if it's not something that you're sure about, you can do it for yourself. It adds so much value.
Exactly, exactly. Because you end up being a better person, better human, and then all those who you interact with, wherever it may be, that is invaluable as well. So I love that. So as we kind of like bring this to a close, I thought let's like have a little chat about like your what would you say is your favorite like habit or thing that you do every day? Is it something that you actually do at the moment? Because it can change as seasons change.
Well, habit as in general, anything.
It doesn't have to be
I
yoga.
start every morning off with masala chai.
I love it.
That's it. That's non-negotiable. I need my muddled ginger. It keeps me flu free, so
Mhm.
benefit. But that is something that I do every morning. I'm
Are you willing
religious
to
about.
share how you make it? Have you got a
I
recipe?
can actually. So you can make it from scratch, but I take the easy way out. I do get a chai mix of organic spices that are already pre-ground. There's two that are really nice. The one I get is just nearby here. It's called Kriya Spices, and they do a delicious masala chai mix. There's also a lady in Cape Town that does it. Indicop also does a delicious chai mix. So I heat up a cup of water or a mug of water. I add in about 4 slices of ginger. As it heats, I muddle it up nicely so the water gets nice and murky with that ginger juice because that ginger is what does it, right? Add in a little bit of the spices, let it boil, add in your tea bag or tea leaves, let that boil. Take all of that out, add in the milk, let the milk heat nicely. And the trick is not sugar, the trick is jaggery.
Ah,
So if you want the real India authentic taste, I'm telling you, jaggery is where you need to be. Sugar just doesn't hit in the same way, doesn't hit right. You add in your jaggery, and then it's ready.
your uncle. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So nice one. So anyone who's wanting to add a little bit of masala tea, chai tea to their day, that's a really fun recipe. Any other thoughts or insights that you would like to share with anyone, Rena, before we kind of like wrap it up?
Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head. Um, Listen, the only thing I want to say about yoga is that it is life changing. I think going for training, going for classes is nice. You get full immersion. You don't have to think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, but having the knowledge of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you should do it adds another level of insight that is really cool. So yeah.
No, that's really, really helpful. And kind of, I think one thing that I want to add in, just because I think I know a lot of people who listen often hear me talk about like the Academy of Yoga and Ayurveda, and I'm always talking about it, but it's not the only place out there that does a teacher training. Like there are lots of other places that do teacher training, and I think like what you did right at the beginning, like trying a whole load of styles of yoga, seeing what it was, and then having an Ayurvedic practitioner or doctor say, listen, this is like you need to do yoga, like you need to do that. And then also having someone who you really respect say, I think this might be the best option for you is very, very helpful. And I think for those who are yoga teachers, instead of trying to push someone into doing a specific training, actually look at what their disposition is and what they're needing, because maybe they're needing an Ashtanga teacher training, maybe they're needing a Vinyasa teacher training, maybe they should actually be going to Kundalini. One isn't better than the other.
Oh, I tried that one as well.
I'm sure you did. And so it is. It's yeah, going, testing, seeing, and as I also find like as we transition through life and the different phases in life, different styles of yoga can start speaking to us in a different way.
Yeah, it resonates, right? Um, but you absolutely like right, because even as you get older, your body changes, your needs change, what you eat changes, how you exercise changes, and in the same way you go through life and your habits change, you change. So you're absolutely spot on. I must say the one thing that I enjoyed about our course was that it was over a year.
Yeah.
Um, you had time to process, you had time to absorb,
Yeah.
and
I'm with
that's a big difference. It's an immersion as opposed to something that's 2 weeks and full time, and you in and you out. I don't know if I would have, with the millions of questions I ask, even have managed that 2 week course. You know? I remember I asked you guys a lot of questions.
And that's what it is, and that's what transformation and processing is all about. It's like, okay, I've learned something and now I'm taking it into my life, and now like things are shifting and changing. It's like, when we're in our safe little environment of the studio, like everything makes sense and everyone's there and we're all good. And then we go out into the garden and we're like, whoa, this feels weird. Like something's not gelling. And then we need to come back and we need to ask those questions, be like, how, where? And then it's just like, well, focus on the other tree down there to get your boat balance, like, and see how that works. And that's, I think, how we learn and grow. Whereas if we just have it in that very short space of time, we don't have the capacity and the space around us, the akasha, to process and allow for that to happen.
And you don't have access to people that are sharing the journey with you, because I think that to me was actually quite special. The people that were in the class with me, the friendships that were built, the understandings that we had, the help, how we helped each other. That was actually quite a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that. Very grateful. And that you don't build in weeks. That took a year, right?
Yeah. The
So
depth of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Reena, it has been so much fun to chat with you. Thank you so, so, so much.
Having me.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to do one of these again sometime.
Yes, in a few years' time, you can check on my progress on the 5-year plan.
On the 5-year plan. Love it. Sure will.